Welcome, low ego action heroes. I'm Debbie Levitt from dcx, and I'm here every Wednesday to take your questions or talk about whatever's on your mind, because the dcx Hive is all about supporting you wherever you are on your life's and work's paths. So, that being said, we are taking questions. Oh, I forgot to put the link in the words above me. Give me a moment. Ask at dcx.to/Q. You can put your questions in the chat and they'll come up on the screen where you just saw that, or you can send them anonymously and I will watch my email for them to come in. We already got 2 ahead of time, so I will start with those. One of them is a question and the other is going to be a little screen share adventure. So let's start with the question that came in ahead of time. And you can always send your questions in ahead of time and I'll get to them when I get to them. Hello, Ana Lucia. So a question I got ahead of time says, "Hi, I work for a service-based company and often struggle to understand the complete process of UX maturity. How should I approach this? And are there any reliable resources to help me comprehensively learn about UX maturity from start to finish?" Hello, Yesterday in Gaming. So UX maturity is an interesting topic, and I've got a few different things that I can say about it, and certainly anybody joining live is welcome to chime in on this. I think that UX maturity is a very touchy subject. Imagine going into a company, being hired to work there. Maybe you're a senior designer or a mid-level researcher. If you're not a manager or leader or higher where you are expected to affect the maturity, which I'll talk about in a moment, imagine just being essentially an individual contributor or worker bee and showing up and saying, basically, this place is immature. This is immature. This maturity sucks. Somebody do something. Now, if you are not in a position to affect that, that sometimes does not win us friends. It might not win us friends to come in and say, this is an immature place. So again, I tend to think that conversations about maturity, strategies, planning, actions, changes, change management is really for people in that manager, director, head, VP, or higher, where you can affect change. So thing one, I would say get straight on what change you can really affect. What do you have the power to do and what don't you have the power to do? Where you don't have the power to do something, can you talk to a leader or somebody above you and see what they can do? Second of all, what is UX maturity? Typically, what UX maturity is about the UX process. We have human-centered design. I don't have my graphics ready today. I am unprepared today. We have human-centered design. We have processes. We have things that we do, and the maturity is usually a reflection. And different people have different models of maturity. So maturity is often about things like how big is the UX department? Is it big enough to have levels of people? We've got juniors, we've got seniors, we've got managers, we've got directors. So have we built out a UX department that has a hierarchy where we are big enough that there's lots of people doing lots of great work here? In my 2019 very long dcx book, I introduced another aspect or dimension of maturity that I found that most models were missing. A lot of models seem to focus on who does the UX work and how big has the department become, and does it have these layers of management and leadership. And because when there is no UX department, other people are pretending to do our jobs. But given that even when we have UX other people outside of UX try to do our jobs, often do them badly. In 2019, I introduced a dimension that I call autonomy. Does the UX department get to run itself? Or is it treated like engineering's assistants or a product manager's assistant or grunt worker? Do UX people get to estimate their own time for a project? do they get that time? Do they get to estimate the budget they need? Or are they under somebody else's budget, and usually that budget is not necessarily given to UX the way they need it? So when I think about maturity, I don't just think about how many people work there. I'm looking at empowerment. Are they empowered to do good work? Are they given time, money, resources, tools, budget, headcount, whatever it might be? And especially the autonomy, because too often, many of you come to this show and tell me the product manager tells me exactly what to do, or the engineering team is designing and just asking me to okay it. You could have built out a large UX team, but this would be low autonomy and, in my opinion, low UX maturity. Yesterday in Gaming says +1 to the importance of autonomy. Ana Lucia says the main thing I would say is related to decisions. Are the UXers just order takers? Are insights being used to improve decisions? Yes, a great point there as well. And that's kind of a flavor of autonomy and empowerment. If we are disempowered, then we do research and nobody cares about it. It's not used for decisions. We're designing and making solutions before we understand people or problems. It's all coming back to autonomy and empowerment. So how can you learn comprehensively about UX maturity from start to finish? There isn't a lot to learn. There are different models. I always thought the worst model out there was Jared Spool's, because he had a model where what he claimed was the pinnacle, the absolute maximum of UX maturity, was actually where everybody at the company does UX work. Now, we can sit here now and go, no, that sounds like the opposite of what most of us want. But it matched how he was selling corporate training around that. He wanted to be able to go into companies and say, look, the pinnacle of UX maturity is when everybody at your company does at least a little UX work, and I'm the guy who's going to come in and train your company to do that. I'm going to train you up to this maturity. And I always felt very strongly that that sold us out. And I think with hindsight now in early 2025, I think more people than just me might say that sold us out. And so I think it's important to think about there are different models of maturity. Some of them may come from people you like or respect. It could be Nielsen Norman. It could be Jared Spool. Some people seem to still like or respect him. But I would say make sure you are using your critical thinking, because some of these models of maturity were designed purely to sell corporate training. Yesterday in Gaming says when the UX folks aren't independent, not only do they not get to see that their findings are being implemented, morale starts to decline and people won't bring their best to work. It's a slow erosion. Ana Lucia says, I've been noticing there are gaming companies with a ton of UXers, over a dozen, some over 100, but then games come out with a ton of mistakes that would have been prevented with good UX research. So now you may be asking, how can this happen? Well, maybe executives aren't asking questions or are disregarding research, which goes back to our empowerment and autonomy. So again, while I think the number of UXers can be a good gauge of maturity partially because it shows an investment in hiring those people, getting them tools, putting them on teams, it can also accidentally or on purpose reveal some of the disempowerment and the lack of autonomy that sometimes ends up being part of reality. So thank you to whoever asked this question. I do not have a definitive guide to UX maturity other than what I wrote about in my 2019 Delta CX book. You can still get it. I would probably recommend getting a digital version, like off the dcx.to website, and that way it's easier for you to search through the book because you can buy a PDF, search through the book, find a word like maturity, and just read the pieces that you care about, because that book was the length of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I know some people felt it was too long, and so I would say, that book could be a good resource, but really without the person who asked this question potentially here, my question would be, and then what? What's your context? What will you do if you have a model of maturity, if you have a comprehensive understanding of UX maturity? What will you do? Are you in a position of leadership? Can you make change? Does your company want to change, or do they think we're just fine? Leave me alone, I'm doing fine, just go away. That was the old Saturday Night Live dysfunctional family Christmas sketch, though not sung particularly well by me. I'm having a grumbly growly day. I'm just looking at LinkedIn, and Larry saw last night's video with Claude, and he said, this does not represent the way I would actually speak with a user. Yep, I agree with Larry. You know, Claude did an okay job, but it's certainly not going to take our jobs anytime soon. Or at least it shouldn't. Okay, thanks to Larry for watching that. Okay, so that was the first question that we got ahead of time. Obviously, if you want to send in a question, you can send it in any time. There's a link at dcx.to, which will take you to dcx.to/Q. You can always send in your questions. Yesterday in Gaming says, that's what it comes down to for me in terms of maturity. What's being done with the findings? What's being implemented, and who or which teams are making those decisions? Excellent question, which comes back to empowerment and autonomy. If we are doing good or great UX research and it's being ignored, it's not factoring into decisions, strategies, priorities, and things like that, congratulations, you might have a nice portfolio piece on some good research you did, but the rest of it's going to be a little wonky. Hi, Vishal. Any questions? This is the Ask Me Anything, so if you've got questions, please ask them here in the chat or send them anonymously to dcx.to/Q. They'll come into my email, and I'll copy and paste them on the screen. Just checking what's coming into my email right now, and it's not from any of you. Ana Lucia says, I've got a follow-up question. Can't a company be UX mature with a small team? They may need more UXers, but they're doing a great job. Yeah, I certainly think so. Let's put that up on the screen. That's why, to me, the size of the team or some of the how many managers do you have could be a piece of it, but it may not be the most important piece. And I think that's what some models that we used to rely on, like the Nielsen-Norman model, I think some models miss that because they look mostly at who's doing the work and have we built out the team to be larger and have management. But I agree with you. I'm doing some freelancing work for a startup right now. They hired a designer last year, and now they're kind of slowly starting to bring me in for some stuff, not only to help lead her, but to do other work. And that to me feels very mature. They seem to love the stuff she's been doing, and so do I. And they seem happy with what I've been doing so far, even though it's only really been this week. And so, yeah, I think if they continue to prioritize and value UX, I had a call yesterday with a potential client. They said, we get so many complaints in customer support about how many clicks it takes to use our system and how slow and outdated it is, and people don't like how hard it is to find things, lots of information architecture things. And they said, we know we need to redesign it, and we know that's probably a 1 to 2 year project. We want to do it right, and they want a proposal from me. I think that's very mature. The downside is this company seems to have no UX designers. So all along, for many years now, they've been making their product, and it definitely looks like it was designed by engineers. And that works until it doesn't. And so, yeah, so I think that a company like that could level up their maturity quickly by bringing in even freelancers or somebody to improve things. But at the same time, I could also say, who cares? Like, who cares about maturity? I'm not going to call up that company and go, you're UX immature. Or, now that you hired me, you sure are UX mature. You know, it's one of those things that sounds nice to talk about, or it sounds like a topic we should bring up. But then I would ask, why? And are we going to look weird for doing it? Because even though I'm all for blowing whistles and standing up and saying things, I'm also worried about us waving this maturity flag when in many ways it doesn't matter. I just want to see companies do good things, ethical things, and I don't have to say you're mature or immature to try to drive that change. Yesterday in Gaming says 100% possible. Smaller teams can often pivot as necessary and own their decisions more directly. And Ana Lucia says if the company truly values UX and research, then the UX team, even if it's small, is empowered and influences good decisions. Totally agree. All right, let's get Vishal's question in. And I am holding a question I got ahead of time just to get... just so we don't forget about Vishal. So let's get this up on the screen. Hold on, let me do a bunch of copy pastes. It's the copy paste show. There we go. So Vishal says, what do you believe the transition from UX to CX is the next big... Do you believe, good morning, the transition from UX to CX is the next big step? What are your thoughts on this shift for senior UX professionals? So this is a conversation that's gone on for a few years now. Some time ago, when some people were no longer happy with UX or were trying to broaden what they were doing, they shifted into CX. Now, in my opinion, if you're doing CX well or you're doing UX well, they should be pretty much the same thing. The user experience is the customer experience. The customer experience is the user experience. Everybody in our experience ecosystem is a user or a customer in one way or another. So I don't tremendously differentiate between these two. You would have to look at the job description to see if the company you're thinking of applying to does differentiate between these two. For example, some companies see CX the way I see UX, and so a job description for a CX professional at that company may look a lot like a UX professional or service designer. Some companies tend to associate CX more with the marketing team. And so when you look at those jobs, they're a little bit more market research heavy. They might tell you you're going to be running surveys, you're going to be running NPS, you're going to try to understand customers better through a lot of quant and a little bit of qual. So it's really hard to draw a line and say, look, this is CX and this is UX. Ultimately, I would say apply for whatever job you qualify for, no matter what they're calling it. I think a few years ago, this was a good shift for some people to make. I'm not sure that the opportunities are there now that we're seeing so many fewer jobs, a tougher job market, fewer jobs, lower pay, things like that. So it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, everybody in UX just go into CX. My advice in general is apply for whatever you qualify for, no matter what the title is. At some companies, something I would call a UX researcher is a product manager, or what I would call a UX designer is a product manager. And so we can't really get too hung up on some of these names and titles anymore because everything has just become so blurry. So my thought is you are absolutely welcome to shift into whatever you can. I support you. I'm here for you. I'm happy to advise and try to help. I think that given the difficult job market, it's just smart to apply for whatever we qualify for. And I typically don't apply for whatever I don't qualify for. So for example, some people would say, hey, Deb, I think you'd make a great product manager. You can do so many things that product managers do. Plus you can do the UX work that some product managers are trying to absorb into their job. Why don't you apply for more product management jobs? And that's because when I read the job descriptions, I technically don't qualify. They're looking for X number of years as a product manager. I don't have that. I only held a product manager title for 6 months. So I can't say, yes, I have 4 years in a product management job. That wouldn't be telling the truth. Very often they're looking for proof that you shipped a product 0 to 1, which means you went from something that didn't exist and you product managed it until it existed and was live to the public. I can't show that. And so I think when we think about shifts or transitions or moves or lateral moves, we have to think about, do we qualify for this job? Can we show that we did it? We did a show 2 years ago, maybe even on the old Delta CX channel, not this Delta CX Hive channel. I think we did a show where we had UX people who moved into product management. And what we found was many of them had previous work in marketing. And that at the time, a lot of product management jobs were trying to marry aspects of product management with aspects of marketing with a little bit of UX. And those people were able to transition in. But that was 2 years ago, and it's just not the same. Now, instead of companies giving people a chance, very often they're looking for the people who have done exactly this before at this kind of company, at this size company, at this stage of growth, and just exactly this. And because of the job market, since there are so many people out of work, they can be picky, and they might eventually find that exact person who's done exactly this before. Ana Lucia says, just a small rant tangentially related to this. I've been seeing CX associated with customer success. I was talking to a friend about this pivot, and he was like, oh, I'm part of the CX team, and his responsibilities have almost nothing to do with what we associate with CX. Yes, I talked about this early on in my Customers Know You Suck book, that there are technically multiple definitions of CX. Some people think it's part of the marketing team. Some people think it's customer support because customer support addresses the customer experience. And some people think it's marketing because marketing is going to check in on the customer experience and measure satisfaction and try to bring people in. And so there's a lot of different definitions of CX. And it's not that these people are wrong. These things all relate to the customer experience. But I believe that customer experience starts with, maybe if we had something better, we wouldn't need so much marketing. Maybe if we had something better, we wouldn't be measuring satisfaction and then being a turtle on our backs going, now what do? Our satisfaction sucks. Maybe if we had a better product, we wouldn't need so much customer support. So to me, while some of these could be CX really starts with looking at that holistic view of the customer experience. Yesterday in Gaming says, in my mind, if you view everything in terms of experiences, then everybody has a role to play in it. If you view things in terms of deliverables, it makes more sense who is doing the work. Overly abstracting these things make it confusing to talk about. Hey, here's Steve Johnson. It's been a while. Hi, Steve. Steve says that's what we call the purple squirrel, the perfect candidate who will work for peanuts. Yeah, Steve is I often agree with Steve. He's been on our show many times, or at least a few times that I can remember. Boy, did we have fun. I think companies increasingly want that purple squirrel. You can see my recent Medium article where I called it the multicorn. It's not enough to be a unicorn anymore. They now want you to be a bunch of unicorns glued together. You have to be a product multicorn. You have to be an engineering multicorn. You have to be a UX multicorn. Hey, you. So it's becoming a stranger world. Both Yesterday in Gaming and Ana Lucia are saying everybody wants to associate the word experience with what they're doing. People experience everything. Employee experience, people experience. Yeah, it's definitely a little confusing. I think the bottom line is that people know that a lot of the value is in the experience. It all points back to the experience. That was the slogan for my old concentric conference. It's all about the X. The experience. All roads lead to the experience. And we've got internal and external experiences. We have the internal experiences of our workers, our processes, how we budget for things, and a lot more. And then we certainly have our external experiences, the people in our ecosystem who have to deal with us in various ways and deal with what we sell them, and that could be good or bad. Steve Johnson says UX and CX happen before development. Customer support and success happen after development. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying there. All of these are certainly part of the customer experience. I'm not going to say that talking to customer support or sending in a ticket isn't customer experience. But as Steve pointed out, it is definitely later in the game. And if we had better products and services and experiences earlier on, I think we would save time, money, internal crap, external crap on that stuff. UXCX before, during, and after. Also true. Thank you, Steve. So the next thing on our list, and I just want to make sure I'm not missing any questions that are coming in. Let's see. Are people posting and I'm missing it? Portfolios. Okay, people were today in Discord, we were talking about URLs for portfolios. Okay, I'm not seeing any emails with anonymous questions, just more people trying to break into my WordPress with fake accounts. Okay, so let's put up the third question, which is going to require a little screen share, a lot of critical thinking, and I think it'll make a neato discussion. So basically, we're going to talk about, someone posted this, I think, to the Discord community, and I ended up asking Claude about it. So what happened was someone posted, I think, to the Discord community that they had found a video from some YouTuber I'd never heard of who had about 45,000 subscribers, which always makes me weird about having so few, but hey, welcome to shadow banning. And this, they had posted it because they thought this person was saying some similar things to what I'm saying. And so I didn't feel like watching the video. So I started by asking Claude to please take the transcript and summarize the video for me. And I want to go through my conversation with Claude because it's going to remind you of some important critical thinking to do when you see videos, articles, courses, communities. There are so many people right now who want to take your money, and I want everybody to think long and hard about whether or not that money should leave your wallet. So I said, this is a video transcript. What are the key takeaways and action items for the audience? Key takeaways: AI is not the future, it's the present. AI is impacting not just design, but markets, business, and the economy. Typical design process and tools are changing rapidly. Boundaries between design, development, and product management are blurring. We've certainly talked about that. Generalist designers who can span brand, content, web, UI, UX, and even some development or prototyping will be in demand until AI takes that. And it said the action items from the video were: designers should proactively think about where they want to fit in this evolving ecosystem and process. Do you want to be more of a developer, content production, or a generalist? I think there's more choices there. Number 2, learn and experiment with AI tools. Chat, GPT, Claude, UIZard, is that how you say that? Durable, Looka. Spend some of your time trying these. AI development tools, hard for designers, but important to explore. Number 3, don't get overly tied to romantic notions of what the design process should be. Again, we have a process in UX, and whenever people say don't feel tied to it, I always worry about that, because the more that we water down our process, and I said this in my 2019 book, the more easily we're replaced by people who think, yeah, UX, there really isn't a process there. It's just a couple of tasks and I can do them. So we have to be careful. I don't think that's good advice. Be open to processes and boundaries between roles changing substantially, which almost sounds like welcome the Trojan horse, and monitor the AI tool landscape. So I then asked it, what is the speaker selling? And Claude said, based on my analysis of the transcript, the speaker seems to be promoting an educational program or cohort that they're running to help designers navigate the rapid changes brought about by AI. So you can see we have a video about this with someone saying, hey, you really got to get this right. You got to do these things, don't do these things. And by the way, we've got a course. The speaker mentions, every time I come across a new cohort, and when the cohort starts, suggesting they are leading some kind of educational program. 2, they state, we're going to be actually covering a bunch of these tools, and we're going to have sessions around it. Sales pitch. The overall tone and content is focused on advising designers on how to adapt and stay relevant. The speaker's positioning themselves as an expert guide to help designers through this transition. Statements like, The best time to start design in India probably was 2015 to 2020. So in summary, while not explicitly pitched, the speaker appears to be selling seats in an upcoming educational cohort or program that will teach designers how to work with AI tools and thrive in the changing design landscape. So if you are pasting transcripts, articles, videos, books, and other stuff into your favorite AI or LLM, please ask it, what is the speaker selling? Because as someone who has things for sale, it's not that I'm against the idea that someone's going to sell you something. There are many things that are worth the price, and there are many things that are not worth the price. And I don't want people to get lulled into this sense of, you're not going to be ready, you're going to fuck your own career, you better take our course. Because that to me is overly manipulative. I would rather say, look, you can do whatever you want. Buy my book if you want to. I just held up a book. I got other ones piled up over here I can hold up. I can say, look, I'm selling something. I've got a book. It's called Life in Tech. Go ahead, go buy my book. Fine, the speaker is selling something. But I'm not going to create an entire block of content making you afraid that you're not going to be able to do this without my content. And so I just want people to be more aware, especially here where Claude is saying this is not an overt pitch. This is a subtle pitch. Then I asked Claude, does he give a web address? I want to see what the course costs. And Claude said, no, I couldn't find it. So I found it. I took the squeeze page. Hands up, who remembers a squeeze page? Steve Johnson will. The guy had a squeeze page. The page had to be the length of a football field with so many sales pitches and so many things. So I did a giant copy and paste into Claude and I said, found it. This is his way too long, shitty squeeze page. What does this cost? I didn't even want to go through it. $1,400. $1,400. Or after taxes, if you're in India, 1.12 lakh. If you're in India, you know what I'm saying. That's an amazing amount of money. And I said, given how many AIs work, should people pay $1,400 to learn to use AI tools? And Claude, an AI tool, says, I would be cautious about paying $1,400 to learn how to use AI tools for a few reasons. One, the AI landscape is evolving extremely rapidly. I'm going to condense this. Two, many AI tools, while powerful, are designed to be intuitive for the average user to learn. You've all seen me using Claude. I didn't take any course on it. I didn't learn to be a prompt engineer. I'm just talking to Claude like a person, and it usually works. Claude says, number 3, there's an ever-growing wealth of free and low-cost learning resources, tutorials, videos, articles, and communities exploring prompt engineering, AI tools, and workflows. Sure, I mean, I've got 1,000 videos on YouTube. There's so much you can learn from me for free. There's stuff you can pay for if you want, but I'm not going to hold you hostage and say, gee, you're not going to be able to learn this if you don't buy my paid course. That's not my style. It's other people's style. And that's fine. Those people are probably making more money than I am. Claude also says, what about practical hands-on experience? That's invaluable for leveraging AI. Devoting that $1,400 to subscribing to the tools and having budget for your own projects to test and learn may serve you better than theoretical instruction. And Claude says, number 5, unless the course is taught by true experts and pioneers in this nascent field, I would question paying a premium. The frontier of knowledge is rapidly expanding and many are still figuring it out. And I said, when they said that designers may spend 50% of their time in other tools, did they give examples of which tools or what kind of tools they might be? Claude says, yes, general purpose AI assistants and chatbots like ChatGPT and Claude, AI-powered design tools that aim to be Figma competitors like UXers, is that how they say that? Durable and Looka, AI development tools that help with coding and building products. And am I still live? Everybody got quiet. Maybe this is interesting. I don't know. Say something, everybody. Emojis up. And the speaker alluded to designers needing to gain... Thank you. Yes, you're live. Thank you. Yes, you're in gaming. Alluded to designers needing to gain some development and prototyping skills, implying tools related to those skills. So then I asked, so the speaker doesn't know that AI designs for you tools aren't for designers. They're for product managers and other roles who want to do our work. Claude says, you raise a great point. Many of these AI design tools are actually targeting non-designers like PMs, founders, and developers who want to create designs themselves without involving a professional designer. For a skilled designer, tools that automatically generate interfaces or full designs based on a text prompt are unlikely to replace the strategic, conceptual, and creative work they do. At best, they might be an occasional starting point or a way to rapidly prototype ideas to iterate on, but the core value designers bring goes way beyond pushing pixels. And then I said, but why should a designer learn development when development is a developer's job? Are we running low on developers in the world? Claude said, you're absolutely right. It doesn't make much sense for designers to dive deep into development skills when that's the domain of, well, developers. There's no shortage of skilled developers out there. I think the speaker's suggestions that designers learn dev skills is misguided and based on a flawed premise. Just because new AI tools are blurring some lines between design and development doesn't mean the fundamental roles need to converge. I agree with your skepticism. I said, is this video's advice meaningful, actionable, or helpful in reality and given our jobs and job market? This is a question I invite you to ask every AI and LLM that you use. What is the speaker selling? And is the video's advice meaningful, actionable, or helpful? That's it. That is the key thing, because if it is actionable, what actions can I take? And we've seen these conversations that I've had with Claude before. Claude says, based on my analysis of the video content in our discussion, I don't believe the advice given is particularly meaningful, actionable, or helpful for designers in the current reality of the job market. The key issues I see are overemphasis on AI disruption without nuance. AI certainly impacting design. The video seems to hype this disruption without critically examining which aspects of a designer role are truly threatened versus enhanced by AI. 2, pushing designers to become developers. I'm going to condense this. 3, glossing over the reality of AI design tools. Many of the hyped AI tools are actually more likely to be used by non-designers. 4, lack of actionable advice. Beyond a vague admonition to experiment with AI tools, there isn't much concrete actionable advice for how designers can strategically respond to AI in their careers. It's heavy on hype, light on substance. And 5, misreading the job market. The in-demand design skills in the market continue to be things like user research, interaction design, systems thinking, and cross-functional collaboration. The video's emphasis on AI and dev skills seems misaligned with the actual hiring landscape. And from there, I asked it, how the hell do I turn Gemini off? And the conversation went in a new direction. So, end scene. That is my conversation with Claude, and that was based on an interesting conversation that we had in the Discord community. Discord community is free to join, dcx.to/Discord. Yeah, so I heard you work in AIX. Yeah, Aix-en-Provence. Yeah, it's all very blurry right now. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong or bad to know more about product management, more about strategy, more about development, more about AI, but I don't want people to end up feeling like hamsters in a wheel where they are just constantly in fear that they haven't upskilled enough, and that if they don't become a genius in everything known to humankind that a tech team could do, they're going to be some sort of obsolete dinosaur and never get the job. There are still plenty of jobs out there for specialists, and there are plenty of jobs out there for generalists, but in general, there aren't plenty of jobs anymore. So you can be a generalist or a specialist, and you can add whatever you want to your toolkit. But as I said earlier, look at the job description. If the job description says, I want you to have 4 years of front-end dev in React, and you learned it last week because of this guy's course, or you took the video's advice, You might not be able to satisfy the requirements that the job is requesting. And that's why I say, to me, I'm ignoring titles less and less, and I'm looking at the job. I'm ignoring them more. I'm ignoring titles more and more, and I'm looking at the job description. What does it expect me to do? Can I prove that I have done this, can do this? That's where the focus is going to be. And whether it's called a product manager, a product owner, a customer strategist, a CX researcher, a marketing manager, the names are going to keep changing as everybody fights for it to be under their domain. Okay, I get that. But the bottom line is, consider before you spend money on courses or upskill any type of upskilling. Make sure that this is the right move for you. We've even heard some people in my community say, oh, all UX designers need to become UI brand visual designers. Many of us don't want to do that. And even if we learned it now based on that advice, I can't show you years of doing UI or brand design. I would have to show you that I just started this now, and here's a cupcake website, and here's a couple of fake things I did to show you I might be able to do this. But a lot of companies want to see that you've done this in an agile environment, or with a cross-functional team, or on a real project. So I want everybody to be careful about some of these things, selling themselves as courses, education, upskilling, opportunities. Ana Lucia says, probably an anxious thought, but how much general knowledge do you have to know to be a generalist? It seems you need to learn more and more and more. It'll never stop if we don't start talking about impossible expectations. Yeah, I have a fun article out there, and I don't remember what it's called because I wrote it a few years ago, but you should be able to find it if you go to Google and write Medium Levitt 5 Easy Steps. Hold on, I've got a screen share cooking. Let me see if I can find it. Medium Levitt 5 Easy Steps. Here we go. Oh, wow. That is more than a few years ago that I wrote that article. Okay, friends, let's share my screen again. I'm not going to go through the whole article. I just want you to know that this article exists. And I wrote this article after, unfortunately, seeing an article by Jared Spool where he had said, let me see if I can find it. Jared Spool had a 2014 article updated in 2019 called Becoming a UX Unicorn in 5 Easy Steps. Now, I can't think of very much I agree with Spool on, so this is going to be just a matter of personal taste. Some people love him and feel he gives good advice, and some people dislike him or feel he gives poor advice, but these were his 5 easy steps to becoming a UX unicorn. Step 1, learn everything you can about a new skill. I'll just stop here for a moment and let everybody react to easy step number 1. Yeah. Easy step 1, learn everything you can. Yeah. It's easy. Just go learn everything you can. Learn everything you can. To which I said, grazie al cazzo, which is the Italian version of no shit, Sherlock. Yeah, sure. If I want to become a unicorn, learn everything you can about all the things. Step 2, practice on your own with no feedback, without knowing if you're doing this right or wrong. Step 3, deconstruct what others have done. This implies that if I show you my research report or a design I made, you will figure out how I got there, and you will be able to emulate me in some way by reverse engineering what I did. Spool was originally a developer. Code is more likely to be reverse engineerable than UX research or UX design. Yeah, you can never be done with your learning, but even if he said learn most things about something, it would still be unreasonable. Spool said, solicit feedback and listen to it. Yes, but I feel like this was a little late in the game. And then teach the skill to someone else, because Spool said you don't really learn something until you teach it to someone else, which means get ready, everybody. I'm about to teach you Portuguese so I can learn it. How many words do I know in Portuguese? 1, and it's dirty. So it's, the old you're going to learn something by teaching it to someone has always been a fallacy and doesn't make sense. So we have to be careful of the people who are selling us on these false things, because what ends up happening is when you say, yeah, I'm going to do what Spool says, I'm going to do these 5 easy steps, and then when you find you didn't learn things well, you're not doing the work correctly, you didn't get good feedback in time, you're in bad habits, you can't get the job you were hoping to get, you're going to think, well, I must suck at this. Spool was right and I effed it up. And you end up with anything from imposter syndrome to mental health problems because his advice was unreasonable. Yeah, Yesterday in Gaming says, teach somebody else by creating a $1,400 course. Ba-doom-tsh. And Ana Lucia says, how can you even teach something you don't know? Huh? Yeah, I agree. I cannot teach something I don't know. I shouldn't teach something I don't know. And I am not going to learn by teaching something I don't know. You learn by being open to new information and pursuing that new information. You don't learn by teaching. You teach by teaching. So we've got a few more minutes on today's show. These usually run an hour. They're every Wednesday. I'll certainly be here next Wednesday as well. But don't forget our Tuesday streams. We also do a Tuesday stream at the same time, 7 p.m. Italy time. Next Tuesday, we're going to be talking about personal security and privacy. Many of you know that kind of our new slogan here on the channel is supporting everybody's work paths and life paths, wherever you are on that path. And I just want to support you wherever you are. If you are new to work and transitioning in, I'm here for you. If you are a veteran and you are staying in or leaving, I support you. And then lots of personal life stuff too. And I want to talk about security and privacy, given a lot of changes in what's happening in different countries and governments and environments. And I think it's important to talk about security and privacy. So I'll be speaking quite personally about some of the habits and tools that I've changed to try to pursue improved security and privacy. I would put myself medium in those efforts. There are certainly people doing way less than I am, and there are people doing way more than I am. So as a medium effort person, I'm going to talk about what I'm doing. Yesterday in Gaming said, I've tried to only upskill with things that I know I find interesting, not purely because it feels like a good career move. That way I'm still developing personally and learning more about those core qualities along the way. It can feel aimless to the outside world, but you walk your own path. Yeah, I've sometimes mentioned on this channel that in 2016, I went to voice acting school in San Francisco, and it cost $3,000, and that's no small amount. Wasn't small then, isn't small now. And I had to ask myself, if I never got paid 10 cents to do voice acting for anybody, if I never narrated anything, if I never got commercial work, if I didn't make any money doing this, do I still want to take this course in the name of pursuing an interest or growing in some way or personal or professional development? And I decided the answer was yes. So I went through a year of voice acting school. I have a number of techniques. I have some knowledge. I do put them to use when I am sometimes broadcasting to you, but definitely in my booth, voice acting my books and things like that. But I've never directly made money from doing that, but I still look back and feel like it was worth it. So again, we had an episode, episode 100 something. It's an old one, but it was an episode we did over on the dcx channel a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, where I said, look, the bottom line on education and upskilling is 2 people get to decide what value that education has. One is you. Whether or not it gets you a job, whether or not it's a recommended course, if you took it and you like it and you feel like it was worth it, that's all that matters. Even if you took a course that I hate, that I'm against, that I think is garbage, if you took it and you like it and you feel like it was worth it, then it was worth it, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Number 2, if you want to take a course, even if you hate it and you don't think it was worth it, but it helped you get or keep a job, it was probably worth it. And to me, those are my measurements for upskilling, taking courses. For example, some of you know I'm back in school right now, and I will be up until 2 in the morning today. I'm doing ICF coaching, so that allows me to become a life coach, a personal development coach, a leadership coach, an executive coach, a traditional certified coach. I didn't have to do that. I've been coaching y'all for hundreds of hours. I could have kept doing that without the education, without the certification. But I decided that for what this was going to cost, whether or not it made me money, whether or not it became my next career, which I kind of hope it will, but whether or not these things happen, I believe that I'm learning great skills that I'm putting to use in service to all of you. And so it's expensive. I'm a little scared of how expensive it is, but I'm playing the long game. And I think in the long game, I will say, I made some money at this. I helped people with this. It was worth it. And someone else could say, Deb, you didn't need to go to coaching school. I thought you were a groovy coach. You helped me so much. Thank you, made up invisible person. But, that's what I'm doing. Learn more in life after tech. As I said I was on a panel last week at a live event, and 2 of us had books and 1 guy didn't. And one guy then bitched out the 2 of us for having books. And I was like, he was like, I'm here to help people, not sell a book. And I'm like, I wrote a book to help people. Like, I make $3 when a book sells? Depends on where I sell it. 3, sometimes 7. Yeah, I hope people will buy my book and read it, but, I would have to sell a lot of them for that money to really count. So the bottom line is, I'm selling you a book that costs $10 to $20 based on where you found it. Even if you hated it, you're only out $10 to $20. If you hate the $1,400 course, you are out a lot of money, and you might not have a way to get it back. Like, I think everybody remembers 2 years ago when I was so endlessly angry at the completely evil, or at least unliked by me, Service Design Network, who I thought bait and switched their course, and I couldn't get my money back. Tony Soprano, who's probably not the real Tony Soprano, you've certainly helped me in your guidance. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to you and the God of your choice. Ana Lucia says, I paid for a teaching and training license for Portugal. I didn't have to use it, but I think it can help me in the future. Yeah, it's actually been suggested to me that I pursue getting a teaching or training license here in Italy in case I want to teach people English. That could be some side money as well. I think the future is gluing together a lot of things and trying to make money out of them, especially since we are not hearing very good news about our potential campground. So Ana Lucia says, also the reason why I took it had nothing to do with the future. I know I have trouble speaking in public. I thought it could help me by putting me in a situation where I had to present or teach and practice to be better. Again, personal development, professional development. These can all be worth it. I can think of things that I've spent money on that I thought weren't worth it. Many years ago, I sent my husband to an NNG multi-day course, which cost thousands and thousands of dollars, plus his plane ticket and hotels. And both of us thought it was not worth it. There are some people who come out of NNG courses and think, wow, that was amazing. That was so cool. It's worth it for them. Both of us looked at what he learned and we were like, that was not $7,000 worth of information. You could have gotten a master's degree for $7,000. So we were not happy with that. So it's always going to be subjective. And that's why I say use these 2 criteria. If it's worth it to you, it's worth it. If it's worth it to an employer, it's worth it. That's it. Like people say to me, oh, I think I want to transition into product management. Should I get a product management certificate? And I say, will you be glad you did? And does a job want that? Many jobs don't seem to care about that. NNG is $1,100 a course. Now you need 5 courses for a certificate. Yeah, that's exactly how I ended up spending. I think it was $5,000-$6,000 to NNG for my husband, and then another $1,000 in flights and hotels. Not worth it. I also thought Service Design Network was far from worth it. I've been very, very upset and frustrated with a lot of courses. My husband also tried UXDI at one point. That was extremely not worth it, and that was $2,000 or $2,400 we couldn't get back. I have thrown a lot of money at bad courses, and so I don't want any of you to do it. Okay, so yesterday in gaming complained I didn't have closing music, and that's because I changed my closing music and I keep forgetting to manually set it off. So that being said, I'm going to attempt to set off my closing music so that I can wrap up the show. Thanks again to let's start the closing music. Let's see, does this work? Cool. I think we have closing music, hopefully not too loud in the background. Let me know if I need to make it quieter. So we are wrapping up today's show. I will flame us out of here shortly. Thanks to everybody involved in the conversation, the people who sent in questions, the people who sent in questions ahead of time. You can always send them in ahead of time, and I grab them and keep them. You should compete with Ms. Rachel's channel to do UX for kids, UX sing-alongs, and remembering UX principles. But why? I don't know who Ms. Rachel is, and I would have to say why. And I can't do a UX sing-along. I would get a copy strike. So, yeah, that sounds interesting, but I'm trying to not do too much right now that doesn't bring me in at least a little money. So I've stopped writing courses because nobody wanted to pay for them. All right, on that sad note, I'm going to flame us out of here, and I hope to see everybody again soon. Have a super week, and see you in the Discord community, which is free, so please join. Thanks. Bye.